Thanks for tuning in, guys. Welcome to this extract from episode 23 of the Gaming Squadcast. The game of the week this week is Control Ultimate Edition. If you want to hear more of us, head on over to your favourite podcasting platform to find our podcast and listen to some more. But for now, enjoy. So our game of the week this week is Control. So, guys, how much of it have you played, and tell me what you think?
I'll go first because I haven't done as much as you guys, so it'll be a bit easier. Yes, I played for about an hour and a half. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play the full 2 hours. But saying that, I was very intrigued by it. Part of me is, I don't think I can give any spoilers away in the part I played, but part of me is like wondering.
You've played an hour. I should hope not.
No, part of me is wondering if what I'm currently going through at the moment is real or not, or if it's just like some sort of. I love the way that like you're having a conversation with somebody and there's an internal monologue going on as well, where she's talking to herself like, "Oh, that's too much information to give away. No, don't say too much." Like she's looking for her brother, but then part of me is like, she shows up and she's the director, but she's fighting people. Is this just some sort of, not hallucination, I don't know, some sort of program? Obviously haven't delved further enough into the game to figure that out, but combat in it was really cool. I was saying it's the first shooting game I've played on the PS5, and what they've done with the feedback on the controller I thought was very cool. The walking, the footsteps, the shooting of the gun. I haven't experienced a game like that, and saying that with a game that wasn't necessarily even designed for next gen, just obviously this is something they've just added in there, with this being on the PlayStation Plus, which I can imagine they would have had done if they were going to be adding it to their collection. But yeah, really good game. We're definitely going to be playing more of it. I'm sure I'll be talking about it next week in what we'll be playing. I'll give you a bit more update, but I'll pass it over to Jose because he was the one who inspired this choice more than anything else. I'd heard him talk about it, and I believe I'd seen him play a little bit of it. So yeah, Mr. GI to the HOSE. What's it going to be?
Wow. Actually, oh yeah, you did.
What
Yeah,
intro.
HO. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm actually enjoying it right now. I don't know. I feel like I'm like maybe 3 hours or so, maybe into it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dino. I think I'm around that mark. Anyway, I've played quite a bit, and I did originally play this when it was first released, and I think there was another game that came out like a week later or a day after or something like that. And I forgot to go back to it. And I was just kept on pointing off, I'll get back to it. And I never did. And then the DLC was announced. I was like, I need to get on it. Because I really do like Remedy and all the other games that they've made. I've played Max Payne's, the Quantum Break, all of those. So this was definitely a game that I was going to crack on with. And then they announced the Ultimate Edition, so I was like, yeah, cool. I'll wait for it, play it on the Series X. And I'm glad I did. It plays really well. On the Series X, you've got the option for quality and performance mode. So the quality on the Series X is 4K at 30 frames per second, but there's no ray tracing. Oh, sorry, with ray tracing. And then there's performance, which is 4K again, but it does dip every now and then. It's like scaled at 60 frames per second with no ray tracing. With ray tracing, it looks so good. It looks really, really good. But 30 frames per second is janky as fuck for me now. I'm just not used to it anymore. So
yeah,
with a game like this, it's so quick and fast paced anyway. When you've got action going on, you're not really looking for all that, ray trace reflections and all of that kind of stuff. So I've been playing 60 frames per second. It's smooth as hell. A couple of times the game's crashed on me when I bring up the map, but it's not a problem because Series X is so fast. You load back into the game really quick. and the game hasn't lost anything for some reason. It saves before it crashes. So yeah, there wasn't a big problem. It's only happened a couple of times. I like the controls. I like it's really smooth. There's a lot of settings that you can dial in the game, which is quite nice control wise. So I moved up like my sensitivities and things like that I'm kind of used to from COD, and it just works really well. And the traversal, all the abilities that you gain, I haven't unlocked all of them, but the ones that I have unlocked they're so good. They're just it just changes the way you attack an area, rather than going full blast. You kind of have to think about it. If you don't do it right and you're just going guns blazing, you will lose out really quick. Um, there's a lot of in-depth like abilities and upgrades. Somehow I missed the bit where you can actually upgrade herself, like level up and things like that. I didn't get a prompt for that for some reason. So I just, as I was logging off one night at like fucking 1 in the morning, I found it. It's like, oh shit, okay, let me try and go through it and get my head around it and see what can be done. There's a lot of things actually that I still haven't fully gotten into. But I'm liking what I'm playing at the moment. I really do like it. Like every day I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get on it, smash out a bit more, see what the story's all about. I'm still confused as fuck as to what the story's about. Um, but that's fine. I was confused with the medium until fucking credits started rolling. So
Some say he's still confused now.
yeah, just haven't come to terms with it. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot. The story's good so far. Gameplay is really good. I like all the abilities that you can upgrade and all the weapons that you can do. Um, it seems like it can go a long way. I can't wait to finish it so that I can then jump onto the DLCs as well, which has got an Alan Wake DLC. Alan Wake was one of the best games I've ever played on the 360. It was amazing. So yeah, I can't wait to see what that was all about as well. Yeah, so it got a 7 and an 8 out of 10, which yeah, I'll put it up there. 8, maybe a 9, but I haven't finished it, so I can't say that. But at the moment, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Metacritic's 82%, which seems fair.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, also depends on what version, I suppose. Is it the score of the Ultimate Edition or is it the score of the base edition? Because
Ultimate Edition, because if I was to play it in quality mode, you're basically playing in what you would have played in the old console, but with ray trace on there.
no, the old console had really bad frame rate dips, like really, really
It
bad.
did exactly. Well, what I'm saying is you drop into 30 when you're playing in quality mode, and for some reason I just can't play games on the new consoles now on 30 frames. They're just so janky. On my One X, I had no problems playing games on 30, cinematic and all that bullshit. But for some reason, now that I've had 60, the only other time that I ever had 60 was Call of Duty. And every other game has always been 30. So you just kind of get used to it. But now the Series X and the PS5, they give you control over that. I'm always going to choose. It's weird because fucking graphics fall. But now, yeah, frames per second, especially in a game like this, it matters. But yeah, that's my take on the Ultimate Edition for the Series X, not the base game on the older PS4 and Xbox One.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I have to just agree with you, I suppose. I mean, I was okay with picking it up because it's on Games Pass. So when Costi suggested it, I thought that's fine. I just looked it up. Then I kind of got thinking about it, and I kind of looked at the game itself and realized to myself that this is something I'm actually going to want to play through to fruition. So I did actually pay for it. I got the Ultimate Edition as well. First thing I did was, literally the first step I made into the
Install it.
Bureau of Control. Installed it. I walked into Bureau of Control. And the first thing I did, I stopped everything. I paused it, and I kept changing between graphics and performance just to see the
Yeah,
difference.
did the same. Yeah.
And you can see the reflections on the floor instantly change. And I think the transitional changes is amazing, and the graphics are beautiful in the kind of the graphics mode, but the performance mode is still a really pretty game. Um,
Yes.
it's it's very good. It's interesting because it reminds me of a physics puzzle game because you can pick everything up and throw it. There's moments where like you'll walk into something and it will just fall apart. I think that's quite funny and
Yeah.
it's a bit random, but it never took away from the kind of it gives it a little bit of janky charm, because this game, like the world environment, is so breakable that you can literally just break everything.
Yeah.
Loving the story. The story is compelling because I actually didn't know what Control was about. I knew it was about this bureau, but I didn't know anything about the main character, where the story is going to go, or what actually happens. So to start playing it, and then you get a relatively trippy. I don't know if any of you noticed this, but the intro is pretty trippy in the way it works. Where you go up the stairs
Yep.
and past, and there's no lift. You talk to RT. You go down. There's a lift. But when you come through, so you walk through the corridor after you come out the lobby, you go upstairs, go through the corridor, you meet Artie, you talk to him, then you walk straight. But when you walk straight from him, you're back at the lobby again,
Yeah.
and then
That
there's a
confused
lift.
me to fuck.
Yeah, and there's a lift there which wasn't there previously, and that kind of stuff was pretty cool because it's a very small detail, and the game doesn't really draw attention to it. She does mention it. She does actually. I don't know if it's a prompt you get if you walk around for a bit, but she does say, "I'm pretty sure that lift wasn't there before."
Mm.
There's also.
That's
I don't know
why I
if you
thought it
guys.
wasn't possibly real.
I mean,
That section.
you see more as you go through.
Yeah.
The building itself does shift. It's like a TARDIS kind of thing. Like it's crazy. Did you guys notice a bit where when you were talking about the inner monologuing, Costi, but then have you noticed that when you were talking to Artie and she said, "Oh, it's nice." She says to herself, "Oh, it's nice to see a friendly face."
Yeah.
In her mind, and Artie says to her, "Thank you. I try to be as friendly as I can."
Yeah.
So he can hear
That's
her thoughts.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It was a what's it called? A projection of her.
Her consciousness.
Yeah, like she's projecting this whole
Because
place.
she says, I know what it's like to be a janitor. She used to be it
exactly.
Yeah.
like years ago.
And then she's a director or something. And I'm thinking in my head, has she made herself a director in her own head in this projection?
It's
or
crazy.
is she playing the role of the guy who she found dead? And she's
That's it. Well, that's the thing, because if you notice that all of the pictures in the building are replaced with her.
Mm.
So as you go through the building, there's pictures of
I
this
didn't
guy.
notice that.
There's pictures of him up on the walls as the director, but after you get the special weapon, it's all her. All the pictures are then her. So
Really
if you,
cool.
yeah, it's so many, like it's got so many small little details and stuff, and like there's videos you can watch. I don't know if you've seen them, Joe. Have you seen the puppet show on the
Oh
TV?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so creepy, man.
Yeah.
So absolutely creepy. But it tells you later on. You find a file that tells you why that was created, and it's basically to explain the bureau to a child that's in the bureau. Why it's so strange and why all this weird stuff's happening. They wanted to do it through puppetry for a TV show because kids love puppets on TV. But the person who made the puppets wasn't like a professional puppet maker; they were just a random person. So that's why they're shit. It's got it's one of those games. It has. I think that me and Costi were going to talk about this earlier, and it's the phrase we hate banding around, but we do all the time. Souls like. But it has that kind of element to it because it has got a story, but it's got a wider narrative that you can find if you look around. So you pick up these pieces of intel, you watch the videos, you listen to the characters, you talk to all the characters. You can do the side missions for Artie where you go and you do like the cleanups and stuff, and you build more of an image of what this place is. Obviously the story does get revealed as to why you're there later on and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, amazing. The gameplay is great. The powers are good. They're powerful, but they're not overpowered. And the enemies scale quite well too. You've got like, flying enemies you can't hit with projectiles when you try and throw them, so it kind of throws you off as well. Yeah, and the gun, you have one gun and you can upgrade it to 4 different models. So you've got grip, which is the normal. You've got pierce, which is like a sniper. You can charge it. You've got scatter, which is like a shotgun, and then you've got the spin, which is like a submachine gun. And you can just upgrade it basically. You can keep them on, get mods for them, and make them more powerful and stuff like that. So that's how the power progression happens. But it's great, and I know it's gonna be one of those games. I will literally keep playing it now until I've finished it. And I can take it off my list and move on to the next game. But until I have completed it, I don't think I'll be playing anything else for a while. One thing it did remind me of, and if anyone has ever heard of this thing called the SCP.
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 No.
Okay. So there's a game that was released called SCP Containment Breach, and it's based on this thing. Anyone who's listening, if this stays in, if this makes the edit, there's a thing online called the SCP project, and what it is it's a conjoined writing project which was created by people online, right? And it's a horror story, but basically has multiple editors, so people add stories in. And what it is that it's a fictional like government agency, like secret cabal, and what they do is they go around and they gather these supernatural forces and they store them and then contain them. Like for instance, an urban legend along the lines of some sort of creepy pasta you might have read online about someone who murders people through mirrors and stuff like that. They'd have that person contained within a facility, and they would keep them contained so that they obviously can't hurt anyone else. And so the story would be that someone would write how they contained this creature, how they found it, tracked it, its backstory, and how they then contained it. So basically, everyone comes in and every SCP has a number, and then you assign a number to the SCP and you write a story about this thing and how the unit, the SCP, the Foundation, goes in and then basically contains them and stuff. It's interesting, but it reminds me of this, where you've got these objects from other worlds, these powerful things have been touched by some sort of force, and this unit, this agency is just wholly around just to store them and to find out ways in which to counteract them. And it gave me massive SCP vibes. If you can check it out and start like looking into it, if you do check on YouTube, there's videos about it and stuff like that, you'll see what I mean. And it's very much of that same vein. And it does mean that you can basically extend this game on for pretty much ever, right? You can keep adding new things in, you can keep adding new objects of power, depending on how it ends. Because I was actually thinking to myself, I'd like this game to end and you just be wandering around the facility. There's no enemies, you're just going around. And then what they could do is add in new things which your team would bring in, and then you have to deal with that. Every time it comes in, you have to deal with it, and like it could create a whole new aspect to the facility, and then ways of dealing with it and puzzles and stuff. But yeah,
Okay.
so it's an interesting game, amazing story. Remedy doing what they do best, and I'm definitely going to crack this one out. It's also the game I've been playing, so
Yeah.
what we're playing section is going to be pretty sparse.
Yeah.